We are taking the peace we have now for granted. Even though there are many conflicts and war zones and ethnic cleansing and genocide happening in different areas of the world almost all the time, the Western world, the developed world, is forgetting what war is like. Developed countries have been relatively peaceful since the Second World War. As a recap, let's just go over the world wars. World War I happened between 1914 and 1918. Germany and its allies were defeated and were heavily punished after the war with war reparations and a big debt that they could not handle, and that led to extreme hyperinflation in Germany and other European countries. But even though Germany and its allies were defeated in the First World War, they ended up becoming the victims of the war after the war ended. They became the victims in the sense that they were blamed for everything, and the countries that won, the winners of the war, basically piled on an extreme amount of debt onto Germany. And Germany felt victimized. Germany felt like they had been too heavily punished for basically what everyone was doing during the First World War. And they blamed a certain group of people for that. And the victims post World War I became the criminals of World War II. After feeling oppressed after the First World War, Germany became the oppressor in the Second World War. And yes, this is very much oversimplified, but I did, from my perspective, it looks like there's a pattern from one conflict to the next, from one war to the next. The victims of one war become the criminals of the next war. When one group of people feel oppressed and victimized and unfairly treated or punished, they become the oppressors, the criminals, the guilty ones in the next conflict, in the next war. This is just my observation. You can say there are multiple factors that come into play when it comes to war and politics. I'm not an expert politician. I'm not an expert historian. I haven't done years of research in war and politics, but from what I have observed, when there's a certain group of people that have been oppressed, victimized, pushed aside, punished, segregated, silenced, ethnically cleansed, killed, when they feel this oppression, this violence, that group of people in the span of one or more generations either seek revenge or their trauma turns them into the next criminals, the next oppressors that instigate violence, that instigate war, that start conflicts and wars on a different group of people. And then that group of people that have been oppressed and killed and punished and tortured or whatever at the hands of the previous victims, then they too, I don't know what the process is, but they forget that they were victims. They forget how it felt to be the victims. And maybe it's because generations have come and gone. Maybe it's because they weren't the ones being the victims. Time has passed. It was their grandfathers, it was their ancestors, that group of people become the next instigators of war and conflict and violence and genocide. Now, my intention with this is not to blame the victims for being victims. It's not my intention to victim shame or blame. This is just an observation I've made about the past wars and our current situation. Now, the victims of the Second World War, we know who they are, right? And right now, the grandchildren of those victims are becoming the new criminals, the new oppressors. Now, it's not all of them, right? There are a lot of people from those groups of victims that still remember how their ancestors and grandfathers, grandparents were treated, and they don't want anyone else to be treated that way. There are certainly a lot of people from these groups that know it's not a good thing to oppress just because you have been oppressed in the past. But I would say that there's a certain number of people from groups that have been oppressed and killed and punished and tortured and silenced. There's a certain number of people from these oppressed groups that go on to become oppressors with power, that influence the direction of politics, and that can actually instigate and start new conflicts, new genocides, new wars. And the Western world, the developed countries, right? Developed, has mostly been unaffected by wars and conflicts that happen in other parts of the world, right? And it's been almost 80 years since World War II. So most of the veterans from World War II have died. Unfortunately, 80 years have passed. It's been 3 generations since we last experienced war. And understandably, when you've never experienced war yourself, when you've never experienced violence or genocide or ethnic cleansing or conflict to such a scale, you forget how evil war can be. You can forget how painful and traumatic and unnecessary these conflicts and violence can be. Thankfully, the internet has given us access to history on a much larger scale. We have the ability to learn about past wars and conflicts and violence. But even so, we don't attach an emotion or a strong emotion or empathy to the things we learn about history, right? Because it's not happening to us right now. So as a society, I think we've taken our sense of peace for granted. And because we've forgotten the effects of war and violence, and because we have taken peace for granted, we forget why war should be prevented. We forget why conflicts and violence and genocide and ethnic cleansing and any sort of conflict should be prevented and minimized as much as possible. And we have to realize this cycle of oppressed to oppressor, victim to criminal, from experiencing trauma to instigating trauma. We have to realize that there is a cycle, and not everyone is a part of this cycle. It's probably a small minority of the groups that end up in this cycle, but we need to realize these cycles and stop them. We can't continue with this cycle. We can't continue. And I think most people, 99% of people, just want a better life. They want a peaceful, safe, secure, prosperous, beautiful life. Most of us want good things out of life. We don't want war, we don't want violence. We want peace, and we want security, and we just want to live our lives to the best we possibly can. We want to live fairly. We want to be treated fairly, with respect, with kindness. Most people just want a better life for themselves. But then there's 1% of people in this world that already have achieved the best possible life they could achieve. They have the money, they have mansions, they have multiple cars, yachts, they have everything materially that they could get. Money is no longer an issue, safety is no longer an issue, security is no longer an issue for them. And for some reason, whether that be psychopathy, whether they're mentally unstable, whether they have trauma, whether they have some sort of mental disorder, I don't know why. There's a different reason. There's a different set of reasons for each person, but I think for some reason, this 1% of people aren't satisfied with their abundant lives, and they thirst for more and more power and control. And those people tend to prefer politics, because politics, the systems we have set up, the governments we have formed, allow politicians to exert significant amount of control and power. And these people that are thirsting for more power usually prefer politics. And these 1% of people influence the direction of the world. They influence the direction of politics. They influence the direction of the events that unfold in our world. And they can start wars, they can end wars if they wish to. We're at the mercy of these 1% of people. And governments, these 1% of people, they know that people no longer want to fight in wars. We've already experienced the immense trauma, pain, violence from the First and Second World Wars, and all the other wars after that. Governments know that people don't want to fight in wars anymore. Governments know that the number of voluntary soldiers has dramatically decreased. And because governments know that people no longer want to fight in wars or experience war, they have shifted their priority from human weapons, from soldiers, from guns, to remote-controlled weapons and weapons of mass destruction, to remote-controlled drones, jets, missiles, bombs, nuclear bombs. Governments know that humans don't want war. Politicians know that people are sick and tired of war. Politicians know that people just want peace. So they've shifted their focus from human-led armies to humanless armies, to drones, to anything that could be controlled with just a few people. And it kind of reminds me of A Bug's Life, the movie A Bug's Life. We don't realize the power we hold as humanity. We don't realize the power in our numbers. We don't realize that our united voice, our united stance is actually enough to change our systems, to change our politicians, to change how governments work, to change whatever we want to change. And unfortunately, we also have the belief that change doesn't happen without violence. So I don't know what the best course of action would be to maintain and seek and improve peace. I don't know what the best solution for peace is. Like, I don't know what the best courses of action would be to achieve world peace. And I don't know if there's an efficient way to achieve world peace without some sort of violence. And it's very contradictory. Like, you shouldn't have to achieve peace through violence. That's like going against the idea of peace in itself. But I don't know, like, do we have to accept that violence and war is a part of human nature? Or do we have the power to change? And I want to believe that we have the power to change. I want to believe that we can achieve world peace. Now, I don't want you to watch this video and, like, catastrophize or be cynical about our future or be just pessimistic about it. I don't want you to give up on world peace. I don't want you to give up on the hope that we can someday achieve world peace where we can all respect each other, accept each other, live in peace and harmony. It might be in the distant future, but I think we need to hold on to that hope. And I do believe it starts on the individual level. I do believe it starts with you and me. I believe it starts with finding inner peace and self-love and respect. I believe world peace starts with inner harmony, inner acceptance. And I'll leave you with a quote that I think sums up this video. When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. And I tried to find the source of this quote, and there's a few people are a bit divided on who said this first. So I won't say who the source is. Whoever you think it is. It doesn't really matter who said it. What's important is the meaning behind the quote itself. And I think I have my own version of this quote that I would like to share with you. It's a slightly modified version, but I think it's just as applicable. When the respect for life overcomes the respect of power, the world will know peace. When the respect for life overcomes the respect of power, the world will know peace. So, thank you for watching. Please know that I don't have any hate towards any specific group of people. My intentions are just to raise awareness to the fact that we've been taking peace for granted. And my intention is to bring awareness to the fact that we have to actively seek peace, to actively embody peace. And we need to respect each other. We need to accept each other. Everyone has a different perspective. Everyone has a different upbringing. Everyone has a different culture, environment that they grow up in. So everyone's different. Everyone's unique, but we are a lot more alike than we are different. Humans are humans are humans. And we need to accept our humanness. We need to accept that we aren't perfect. We need to accept that everyone has flaws. We need to accept that people can have different opinions and beliefs and religions. And I don't know what the best approach is. I know that we all have the responsibility to start with ourselves. We all have the responsibility to start with ourselves. We all have the responsibility to be the change we want to see in the world. Now, it might not be your fault that you are where you are, who you are, but it is your responsibility to be the change you want to see, to be the peace you want to see, to be the respect, the kindness, the love you want to see in the world. If everyone had self-love, self-respect, self-acceptance, and applied the same respect, love, acceptance towards others, we would have world peace. We wouldn't have any conflict. We wouldn't be arguing about where the invisible lines should be. We wouldn't be fighting over imaginary lines. We wouldn't be fighting over our right to live. So thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking with me till the end. Please keep in mind that these are just my observations and opinions, and they are subject to change, and you do need to use your own discernment. Yeah. So thank you for watching. Please take care of yourself. Please be kind to yourself. Please be kind to others. I hope you don't take the peace you have for granted, and I hope you live in alignment with the change you want to see in the world. I hope we can change the world together. I hope we can make the world a better place together. I hope we can make the world a more loving, kind, fair, just, beautiful, safe, peaceful, harmonious world. Please don't hesitate to leave your own opinions in the comments. If you like my video, please consider subscribing. And I hope to see you in my next video. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a lovely week. Please take care of yourself. See you later. Bye.